Chapter 1. The spark beneath the ash whispered from the mouth of a dead force, ... in the barren cradle of Tatooine, where sons die each evening and are reborn without warmth, a child was born without a father. The wind did not sing his name, nor did the stars align in joy. Instead, the sand recoiled, the moisture farms flickered, beasts of burden trembled. It was not a birth, it was a disturbance. No midwife bore witness. No prophecy was spoken aloud. Only Shmi, Skywalker, hollow-eyed and touched by something ancient, cradled the child and whispered of dreams she did not understand. She said he had no father. She said he came from within, like breath, like fire, like something old awakening. Beneath the skin of time, the Jedi would one day call him chosen. The Sith would one day call him weapon. But here, in the silence between suns, he was merely a boy named Anakin. The Force, vast and unknowable, convulsed in silence. Something had been altered. The balance was trembling. Unseen watchers across the galaxy felt a ripplesome, dismissed it as noise. Others felt terror. One ancient voice, once flesh, now only memory, recognized the echo. It whispered from within a holocron lost in blood. This is not birth, this is theft. Anakin grew in chains. Slavery wrapped around his wrists, but his spirit remained unbroken. He spoke to machines, and they obeyed. He raced pods through death's breath and survived. He healed with touch, with will, without knowing how. He saw things before they happened. Danger never surprised him. Fear was always near him. The other children whispered that he was strange. The old slaves feared him. His mother watched with pride, but never peace. For she too had dreams, now dreams of stars screaming, of cloaked figures watching, of lightning without storm. And still the Jedi did not come. The Republic did not know his name. The galaxy kept turning, blind to the fracture forming beneath its feet. But in the depths of Coruscant, far from the desert winds, a shadow stirred. A man with many names and no soul stood beside a dying master, listening to lessons older than flesh. Darth Plagueis, the Mun, philosopher king of death, had once tried to bend the Force to his will, to create life from nothing, to birth a child of the dark side. But the Force had resisted. Or had it? The dark whispers claim that Anakin was the result not of success, nor of failure, but of consequence. That the Force, in recoil, created a being of imbalance, a child, born not of love nor lust, but of cosmic retaliation. The Sith believed the boy was a response. The Jedi believed he was a gift. Both were wrong. He was a wound. Watto, his master, called him useful. The Hutts did not see him at all. But the shadows watched. And one day a ship fell from the Sky Queen Amidala's craft, fleeing Naboo's siege. And with it came Qui-Gon Jinn, a Jedi who walked just outside the Council's circle. A man of instincts, not doctrine. Qui-Gon saw the boy. He saw the tremor. He did not understand, but he felt. Anakin's blood held more midichlorians than even Master Yoda. A number without precedent. An impossibility. A key. A question. A threat. The dice were cast. Freedom was won. The boy left the sand, but the sand never left him. He would dream of it, often the endless dunes, the heat, the cages. Even in temples of marble, his soul remained tethered to rust. As their ship departed, as twin suns fell behind them, a Sith watched from afar. Darth Sidious smiled without warmth. He too had felt the boy, He too had heard the shift in the current. A new peace had entered the board. A peace he would claim. The Force wept in the archives of time. Buried beneath 100 false truths, an ancient voice speaks. From ashes rises the flame, not light, not warmth, but fire without end. The child was not found, he was placed, and so begins the long descent. A journey cloaked as ascension. Anakin Skywalker, born in chains, touched by the unnatural, dreamed by the Force, claimed by none, hunted by all. The stars do not sing his name. They only burn and wait. Chapter 2. Shadows beneath the temple, whispered by a voice carved in kyber and blood. Coruscant rose like a graveyard, dressed as a jewel. The city world stretched forever in all directions, a monument to civilization's ambition and its blindness. But above the towers and below the clouds, nestled in the cradle of false light, stood the Jedi Temple on ancient mountain carved by faith, silence, and discipline. The boy arrived in quiet. No trumpets, no prophecies shouted aloud. Only the murmur of robes, the press of whispers, the turning of old eyes toward a new presence. He stood small, but the space around him bent, not visibly, not loudly, but deeply. The Force moved around him as if it recognized itself. Master Yoda felt it first. In the boy's shadow, he saw death, not of body, but of balance, a chill unseen. The ancient master watched Anakin with eyes that had seen empires rise and return. For the first time in centuries, his soul did not settle. Mace Windu frowned. His instincts struck like lightning. The boy was dangerous. His power, raw and untamed, bent toward attachment. And attachment was the doorway. Fear, loss, rage. The Sith did not begin in darkness, they began in grief. Anakin was denied too. Old, too frightened, too full of a mother's love. But Qui-Gon, stubborn in his vision, stood against the council. He named the child the Chosen One, one who would bring balance to the Force, as foretold in scripture etched on Jedi walls long. Buried beneath layers of new belief, they allowed him to stay. Not out of faith, out of fear. The prophecy hovered like a blade between their ribs. What if he was the Chosen One? What if they denied salvation, or worse? What if they had already welcomed destruction? As Anakin walked the temple halls, he did not feel welcome. The stones whispered, the holocrons remained sealed. The other younglings watched with eyes not yet trained to hate, but already shaped by unease. He did not belong, and he knew it. In the archives the Force shimmered around him. Old memories stirred. Jedi long dead turned in their graves. The code wrapped around him like a noose made of words. No emotion, no attachment, no self, but he had already lived too much, already loved too much. He dreamt often of his mother, of chains reforged, of her voice drowned in fire. The temple's sleep could not quiet him. Meditation felt like exile. He searched for meaning, for peace, but found only silence. Obi-Wan Kenobi, now his reluctant master, walked between duty and doubt. He trained the boy as promised, but could not silence the echo of Qui-Gon's death. The Jedi who believed, the Jedi who saw, slain by a Sith Lord reborn from myth Darth Maul, a creature of rage and blade, and behind Maul, deeper still, walked another shadow. Darth Sidious watched from the rot of the Senate. Each breath Anakin took brought the boy closer to him. The bond was invisible, but it tightened each day. The temple did not see it, or perhaps they chose not to see. Anakin grew, but not within the Order's design. His questions were not rooted in curiosity, they were rooted in need. Why? What is the Force? Why must love be forbidden? Why must attachment be feared? The masters gave him riddles wrapped in silence, but Sidious would give him answers. One day, in the Hall of Mirrors, where Jedi faces were carved in light, Anakin stared at his reflection. His eyes were brown, his heart was fire, and deep within him, the Force pulsed not as balance, but as storm. He would meditate, as instructed, but he felt nothing. He would chant, as required, but the words felt hollow. What he felt truly was power, flickering, rising, unclaimed. He touched it in dreams. He felt it in the hum of lightsabers. He saw it when he looked at the stars and imagined bending them. He was not afraid of his feelings. He was afraid of losing them. Some nights, beneath the silence, the temple moaned. Stones wept from old wars. Holocrons, sealed by ancient hands, pulsed in their chambers. Some bore Sith sigils. Some were cracked open. Voices trapped inside like insects in amber. One such voice, forgotten by time, called to Anakin in sleep. Not loudly, not with sound, but with weight. It spoke of balance, not as peace, but as correction. What has too long lived must be silenced. What has too long ruled must fall. Was it the Force? Was it a ghost? Or was it something older, something that remembered Darth Plagueis the Wise? The boy awoke with tears in his eyes, and did not know why. The council held debates in secret, whispers of the boy's path. Yoda warned again. Windu pressed for caution. Obi-Wan defended, but none knew the truth. The prophecy was incomplete, its origin obscured, its meaning twisted by time, and in the Senate, Chancellor Palpatine's beloved voice of the Republic requested a private audience with the boy. He smiled kindly, spoke softly, promised nothing, but planted seeds. You are strong, Anakin, stronger than they know. One day you will be the greatest of them all. Anakin smiled, and for the first time since leaving Tatooine, he felt seen. The temple remained unmoved. Its towers reached skyward like fingers begging the stars for answers. But the stars had already spoken. The answer had already been born. The Force trembled beneath the floor. The dark side, patient as stone, waited. Chapter 3. The Phantom's hand echoed from the marrow of forgotten Sith. The galaxy, blind in its abundance, did not feel the tremor, but the Force did. Beneath every city, across every world, in the silence between stars, something old had returned, not born, not summoned, but awakened. Darth Sidious, cloaked in civility, ruled from shadows. His smile lit the Senate, his words soothed systems. But behind his voice lay another darker, older, shaped by the teachings of a master now devoured. His name was never spoken, only remembered in tremors and ash. Darth Plagueis, the wise philosopher of death, architect of unnatural life. He had taught Sidious the ancient secrets, the ability to extend life, to manipulate midichlorians, to bend the very will of the Force. But knowledge is hunger, and hunger devours the hand that feeds. On the eve of a galactic eclipse, Sidious murdered his master in silence. No battle, no blade, only breath stolen in sleep. Plagueis died as he feared most, powerless, alone, unseen. But his teachings survived, dripping from Sidious' tongue like venom. With Plagueis dead, the final lock had turned. The rule of two, that sacred chain, had been fulfilled once more. Master destroyed, apprentice risen. and the path to total dominion cleared of all obstacles but one: patience. Anakin, still training among Jedi stones, did not know his fate had already been chosen. The phantom menace, the hand behind every war, every decision, every faltering. Republic policy was already weaving him into the grand design. Through Naboo's crisis, Sidious tested the Senate. Through the Trade Federation's cowardice, he gauged fear. With Queen Amidala, he tested resolve. And when she fled to Coruscant, unknowingly carrying the boy in her ship, Sidious tasted fate and grinned. The Sith do not believe in coincidence. They believe in design, and so, while the Jedi argued over taxation and treaties, the dark side moved. Like smoke through votes, through robes, through smiles. Chancellor Valorum fell. Sidious rose in his place. A senator no longer, now Supreme Chancellor of the Republic, all by law, all by voice, all by vote. Democracy applauded its own execution, and beneath it all, the boy remained unaware. Anakin trained. He obeyed, he questioned, he doubted. His power grew, but his control did not. The Jedi watched, but did not see. They disciplined, but did not understand. They had taken a weapon into their sanctuary, one forged in fire, sculpted by prophecy, and already marked by unseen hands. Palpatine, always nearby, became his confidant. He offered no lessons, only approval, only understanding. You are not like the others, Anakin. You are destined for far more. Each compliment carved a channel, each smile a wound. Slowly, the Chancellor became what no Jedi could: a father, a friend, a reflection, and the war to come designed long ago by Sidious and his fallen master neared its first scream. On Kamino, clones were bred in silence. On Geonosis, factories stirred. Count Dooku, once Jedi, now Sith, moved as a false enemy. His role, to provoke fear, to ignite chaos. Sidious was both architect and savior, the villain and the solution. War would justify control, death would demand order, and through it all, Anakin would be groomed not to question, but to serve. In the temple, the council debated. Whispers of Sith returned. Old fears resurfaced. Yoda meditated longer. Windu spoke harsher. The archives were combed. Prophecies reread. The chosen one, born of no father, destined to bring balance. But what is balance? A lie the light tells itself, or a reckoning long overdue. Even now, Plagueis' voice seemed to linger, though his body rotted in a forgotten crypt. His teachings had not ended with breath. They had soaked into his apprentice. And through Sidious, they reached into the bones of the galaxy. The Phantom's hand did not hold a saber. It held the Senate, the courts, the armies, the future, and soon it would hold the boy. Anakin's dreams turned darker. His sleep was restless. He began to see cities burning, stars dying. Padme crying. The Jedi told him not to fear. That fear led to the dark, but fear already lived in him, not as enemy, but as companion and Sidious. He did not warn Anakin of fear. He validated it. Fear means you care, he whispered once. Only the strong protect what they love. The Jedi are afraid of that strength. But you were born to use it. And the boy believed him. One step, one word, one whisper at a time. The hand of the Phantom reached deeper. The trap was not set. It was already sprung, and in the deepest vaults of the Jedi Temple, a Sith holocron pulsed in silence. Untouched for centuries, it did not glow. It watched, and within it, A voice murmured, "The prophecy is not salvation. It is sentence. And the chosen one is not savior. He is flame." Chapter 4. The burning of innocence whispered from the scorched mouth of prophecy. The war came not with a scream, but with applause. The galaxy, swollen with peace, till long unguarded, burst open. Steel met sky, flame kissed flesh. The Clone Wars began, and Anakin Skywalker, the boy who dreamed of stars, was thrown into fire. He became a general, not through years of preparation, but by necessity. The Jedi, guardians of peace, were now commanders of armies, soldiers in robes, strategists with sabers. And in this new age of death and duty, Anakin thrived. His instincts, once questioned, became revered. His recklessness became bravery. His power, once feared in silence, became legend. But the innocence that clung to him fought, and each victory carved a deeper wound. The boy who once built droids for joy now commanded legions to kill. The child who once freed slaves now marched with an army bred in chains. He did not question, he did not pause, he could not. For every night the dreams returned, Padmam, dying in childbirth, screaming his name, surrounded by shadows. He told no one. The Jedi preached detachment, but his love for her was not a weakness, it was his anchor, his reason, his soul. He loved her in secret, married her in silence, hid her behind duty, behind war, behind robes and lies, and still the dreams would not stop. He sought guidance, but the Jedi offered riddles. Trust the Force, they said. Let go. But Anakin couldn't let go. He had already lost his mother, already buried her, already heard her die in the sand as he arrived too late. He had vowed then never, again, never another grave, and the Jedi, blind in their purity, did not see the storm growing beneath his calm. Obi-Wan watched. He sensed the changes, the silences, the distance. But he was bound by duty, not understanding. He loved Anakin as a brother, but brothers too can be blind. The war continued. The galaxy bled. Dooku fell. Grievous fled. And through every battlefield, the people chanted one name, Skywalker. But that name was a shell, a mask over fire. Inside, Anakin began to hate the Council for their mistrust, their restrictions, their control. They made him sit on the council, but denied him the rank of master. It's unfair, he hissed. And in that moment, fairness died, because power does not concern itself with fairness, only fulfillment. Palpatine, always near, always watching, fed the flame, whispered of the Sith, of powers the Jedi feared, of the ability to stop death. He did not speak plainly. He spoke like the dark side itself, suggestion, not command. Darth Plagueis, the wise, an old tale, a forbidden legend, a Sith who could create life, cheat death, bend the Force to his will. And Anakin listened, not as a Jedi, but as a husband, as a son who had failed his mother. He did not yet choose the dark, but he leaned toward it, because the dark offered control, the power to change destiny, and destiny terrified him. Padmam grew distant. She feared what he was becoming. She saw shadows where there had once been warmth. Anakin, confused and unraveling, clung harder. He became possessive, desperate, furious at the very idea that he might lose her, and somewhere deep inside, the voice of the Force cried out, but it was not warning him, it was mourning him. In battle he was flawless, but in spirit he cracked. He killed without hesitation, showed mercy without rule. He was becoming what the Jedi feared, someone who did not see the code, only the outcome, and still, the Jedi kept him close, not to trust him, to watch him, but they watched too late. The dream was no longer just dream. It was becoming prophecy, and the boy, now a man forged in fire, began to burn from within. The war had elevated him. The war had broken him. He was no longer the slave, no longer the student, no longer the innocent. He was something else now, something the Jedi could not name, something the Sith had long awaited. The dark side curled around him, gently, lovingly, patiently, waiting for one more betrayal, one more dream, one more scream. The burning had begun. Chapter 5. The wound in the Force, whispered by a broken thread in the cosmic veil. The Force does not bleed. It rips, it rends, it tears across eternity, without scar, without healing. And when Anakin Skywalker raised his blade against Count Dooku and struck down a helpless man, the wound widened. The Sith did not laugh. They waited. That act so quick, so quiet was not born of justice. It was born of fear, of anger, of need. The Jedi taught restraint, but restraint had not saved his mother. Restraint would not save Pad, and now, at last, the doors were open. Palpatine, standing by with kindly voice, offered no reprimand, only approval. He was too dangerous to be kept alive, he said, and Anakin believed him, not because it was true, but because it felt true. The Jedi Council, sensing storm and fire, began to unravel. Their order had stood for 1,000 generations. Their archives whispered of balance, of patience, of light enduring, but now they watched from trembling thrones, speaking in riddles, hoping to outmaneuver a war they no longer controlled. The Senate bent toward Palpatine. The people hailed him as savior. The clone armies obeyed without question, and within the Jedi Temple, fear bloomed behind every silence. They sent Anakin to spy on the Chancellor, to betray a friend, a mentor, a father. They did not trust him. He knew it. And in the quiet of night, beneath the stars of a dying republic, he turned his gaze inward and saw nothing but Flame Pad, pregnant with his child, their child, a new life amidst the ruin, a hope he could not lose. But the dreams returned, the same every time, her face pale, her voice fading, her breath stolen in childbirth. He begged the Force for answers, but it only whispered riddles in return. The Jedi told him to let go. The Sith offered to hold on, and so the wound widened. Palpatine revealed the truth not with cruelty, but with affection. He did not lie. He unveiled he was the Sith Lord, the phantom behind the war, the architect of chaos, the enemy of the Jedi, and yet he offered life, not for himself, but for her. The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. Anakin hesitated, not in horror, but in calculation. Could it be true? Could the darkness save what the light could not? Could it prevent death itself? He left Palpatine alive. He returned to the temple, broken and burning, and told the council of what he had learned. Mace Windu acted. He did not ask. He did not offer choice. He took 3 masters with him and prepared to kill the Chancellor. Not capture, not try. Kill. And Anakin, left behind, watched the door close. The Jedi preached justice, but when fear ruled, they reached for the blade. He waited, pacing, breathing, hearing the dream echo in his mind. Padmam screaming, Padmam dying. He couldn't lose her, Not again. Not like his mother. Not like the others. Not because he obeyed rules written by men who did not understand love. And so he went. He arrived as Mace stood with saber raised, Sidious lightning in hand, power crackling like a storm across the galaxy. The Jedi had won. The Sith would die, and Podmum would die with him. Anakin begged for mercy, not for justice, for knowledge, for life. Mace refused. He is too dangerous to be left alive. And in that sentence, the Jedi died. Anakin chose, he struck. The saber took Windu's hand. The lightning did the rest. And in the scream, in the thunder, in the final flash of the Jedi's fall, the Force shuddered, not in rage, in silence. A silence that stretched across the stars, across temples and tombs. A silence that marked the point of no return. The wound in the Force had opened, and it would never close again. Palpatine stood from the floor, his body twisted, his eyes burning with truth. He looked at the trembling boy and called him by a new name. Darth Vader, not in cruelty, not in mockery, in baptism. Anakin knelt, not in surrender, but in exchange. Love for power, fear for control, hope for certainty. Padme would live. He would save her, no matter the cost. The galaxy tilted. The Force, ancient and eternal, wept, and the stars watched a savior become a shadow. Chapter 6. The dream of Vopad, beneath the lightning, a forgotten path before the fall, before the blade turned on its maker, before the Chosen One shattered the will of the Jedi. There was a movement in the dark, a current that did not resist the storm, but danced within it. Vapad, not a form, not a technique, not merely the seventh motion in a codex of ancient saber arts. It was a dream, a scream, a moment in battle where a Jedi could stand at the edge of the abyss and not fall. Not yet. Mace Windu was its last master. He did not invent it to conquer. He forged it to survive. In a world spiraling into bloodshed, he understood something the Council feared to name, that light alone could not hold back what was coming. And that peace, in the hands of the blind, was already lost. He was no idealist. He was no sage. He was the storm given form. And so Vopad was born, not to defeat the darkness, but to invite it, to flow with it, to harness it, to let it pass through the blade, through the self, without letting it stay. But no one else could master it. Sora Bulk failed and fell. Dipper Billiber wandered into madness. Others dared and died. Only Mace could ride the lightning. Only he could turn the scream of war into stillness. He was not afraid of the dark, because he was the dark, balanced on a knife edge, eyes closed, saber drawn. A question unanswered. Anakin Skywalker never knew the truth of Vapad. He only knew the end. He watched Mace fall through the shattered window, wind screaming, lightning burning his bones. He watched the man who could hold the storm be destroyed by it, but Vopad had not failed. It had reached its final dream, because in that final battle, Mace Windu became more than a Jedi. He became judgment. In his duel with Sidious, he did not hesitate. He did not doubt. He matched the Dark Lord's strike for strike, spinning his blade with perfect clarity, and for a moment, a single second, the darkness was defeated. Sidious was beaten, powerless, crippled beneath the weight of his own lightning, and the Force held its breath, but the dream shattered, because the Jedi had never trained for love. They had trained for war, and war made them cruel. Mace did not arrest the Sith. He did not preserve the code. He did not trust the Force. He reached to end the darkness, to destroy what could still be understood. And in doing so, he sealed the future. Vopod was a current. A current needs balance. And the moment he struck in fear, he fell from the stream. And Anakin rose, the boy who had once been a slave, the man who feared death, the husband who dreamed of a child's birth and saw only a grave. He acted, the blade fell, and Mace Windu became a myth. But Vopod did not die, because Vopod was not a person. It was a threshold, and in striking Mace down, Anakin did not destroy the dream. He fulfilled it. He became the next vessel, but twisted, corrupted, reborn, no longer a dancer in the storm, but the storm itself. Vopod taught its master to walk beside the abyss. Anakin plunged into it and became its king. And the Force, wounded and silent, echoed through time. One who mastered the darkness must one day face what it created. And far away, in the shadows, the ghost of Mace Windu did not scream. He waited. Chapter 7. The metal masked the air on Mustafar, burned like a furnace. Ash floated in the crimson sky, settling on black rivers of molten rock that writhed below like veins of a dying world. Obi-Wan stood at the edge of a shattered platform, his lightsaber humming in a defensive guard. Before him, Anakin Skywalker, something else now glared through eyes, blazing like twin suns gone mad. You turned her against me. Anakin's voice was raw, trembling with rage and grief. Lava light glinted on the sweat that streaked his scarred face. Obi-Wan felt his heart cracked with every word, but his stance did not falter. He had sworn to protect the Republic, but this was something deeper. You have done that yourself, Obi-Wan said. His tone was calm, but inside he drowned in sorrow. The boy he raised was gone, consumed by fire long before this day. Every strike Anakin had delivered since this duel began was filled with hatred, not the grace of the Jedi he once knew. Blades crashed, spitting sparks like dying stars. Heat bent the air, warping their forms as they danced along narrow platforms. Suspended above rivers of death, Anakin attacked like a storm, relentless and furious, driving Obi-Wan back with every strike. Their movements blurred, blue against blue, the hum of sabers echoing like a dirge for a galaxy lost. I see through the lies of the Jedi, Anakin roared, locking blades with Obi-Wan, so close that Obi-Wan could see his twisted expression, half fury, half despair. I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire, your new empire. Obi-Wan's voice broke, a whisper of disbelief. Anakin, Chancellor Palpatine is evil. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. The scream tore from Anakin's throat like a wound reopened for a heartbeat. Obi-Wan saw the child from Tatooine, the wide-eyed boy who dreamed of stars, but then the fire swallowed him whole. The duel surged into chaos. They clashed across collapsing towers, leaped over rivers of magma, sparks raining. Like burning rain, Obi-Wan fought to disarm, not kill. Anakin fought to destroy. The Force screamed between them, a tempest of betrayal and shattered destiny. At last, Obi-Wan vaulted to higher ground, landing on a slope above the raging inferno. His blade hummed low, steady. It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground. His voice carried no triumph, only grief. Anakin's chest heaved. His eyes glowed like molten glass. You underestimate my power. He crouched, muscles coiled, darkness swirling like smoke around him. Don't try it, Obi-Wan pleaded. The wind carried the stench of sulfur, and with it the certainty of what would come. Anakin leaped. For a fraction of a second, he was a silhouette against the burning sky, a broken angel diving toward hell. Obi-Wan moved with sorrow carved into his bones. His blade flashed once, severing limbs in a burst of agony and light. Anakin crashed onto the ashen slope, a shattered husk. His scream ripped through the molten air, a sound that would haunt Obi-Wan until his final breath. Lava sprayed as his remaining hand clawed at the rock, his body sliding toward the boiling river below. You were the chosen one. Obi-Wan's voice cracked like brittle glass. He staggered down the slope, lightsaber trembling in his grip. It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them. Bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness. Anakin's face twisted in hate, the fire reflecting in his eyes. I hate you. His voice was venom, but beneath it, Obi-Wan heard something worse, pain. Betrayal, the echo of love turned to ash. Tears carved tracks down Obi-Wan's soot-streaked face. He looked at the broken thing that had once been his brother, his son, his friend. And then, because he could not kill what remained, he turned away. I loved you, Anakin, he whispered. The words vanished into the roar of lava. He took Anakin's weapon, the blue blade that once symbolized hope, and walked away. Shoulders heavy with failure. Behind him, the flames rose higher. Anakin's body ignited, skin searing, flesh charring as the heat claimed him. His screams turned into a rasp, then silence, then only the crackle of burning meat. But he did not die. Darkness held him, and in that darkness a voice slithered a promise, a command, rise. When the agony ended, there was only the sound of machines, cold. Steel replaced burning flesh. Iron lungs dragged in air with a hiss like the whisper of graves. He opened his eyes, but the world was filtered through crimson glass. A mask sealed his face, a prison of metal and breath. What is thy will, my master? The voice was not his own. It was a shadow of a man, an echo bound in circuits and hate. The name Anakin Skywalker drifted away like ash on the wind, and as the mask breathed for the first time, the Force shuddered. Chapter 8 Echoes of the Machine. The galaxy did not mourn. It obeyed. The Emperor's voice swept across the stars like a tide of iron, proclaiming a new order, an eternal empire. Worlds bowed, fleets bent their knee, and the Jedi, those who had survived the purge, became phantoms, hunted like vermin, in the shadows of their own temples. And at the heart of this new age moved a figure of black steel and silence. Vader walked where armies had fallen. His breath was the sound of inevitability, a mechanical whisper that froze blood and smothered hope. He did not stride, he advanced, a storm caged in armor. The mask hid his face, but none could miss the weight of his presence. Once he had been a man, now he was the Empire's shadow. The first hunt began on Kessel, in the mines where slaves whispered of Jedi protectors. Vader descended without warning. His lightsaber bloomed crimson, a wound in the dark. The Jedi, their weary knight named Jorik, toll raised his blade, blue against red. Their clash was brief. Vader's strength was monstrous, his rage cold and precise. Toll's saber spun into the dust, and with a flick, the machine ended his life. No mercy, Vader said, though no one had asked. The words were for himself, or perhaps for the ghost screaming inside him. Every strike he delivered severed another thread to his past. He had thought death would free him from pain, but pain had not died. It had only changed its shape. The hunts multiplied. On Ryloth, in the burning jungles of Felucia, In the frozen ruins of Plutonia, wherever whispers of Jedi rose, Vader followed. Those who saw him and lived told tales of a demon forged from black fire, a phantom of war. None spoke the name Anakin Skywalker. That name was buried deeper than any grave, locked behind circuits and hate. But the galaxy was wide. The Emperor, cunning and cruel, knew Vader could not scour every star alone. So the Inquisitorius was born a cadre of broken Jedi, twisted into hunters of their own kind. Vader trained them with merciless precision. His blade cut down the weak, his cruelty sharpened the strong. They learned quickly, fear was a better leash than loyalty. Still, even as he forged killers in his image, shadows stirred in the prison of his mind. When the mask hissed and the breath came, dreams slipped through the cracks. A desert bathed in twin suns. A mother's smile, a boy's laughter, small and bright like a star about to die. The memories struck like blows, but he smothered them, burying Anakin deeper in the abyss. One night, aboard his flagship, he stood before the viewport. Stars stretched like scars across the void. His reflection stared back black metal, soulless eyes. For an instant, another face hovered behind the glass, a man with tired eyes, hair tousled by desert winds. Anakin, the sight seared him worse than fire. Do you hate him? The voice came like venom in silk. Sidious appeared behind him, cloaked. In shadow, a grin carved from malice. The man you were. Vader's fists clenched. Metal groaned under the strain. He was weak, and weakness is death, Sidious purred. His words coiled around Vader's mind, chains disguised as truth. Forget him. You are power. You are vengeance. Vader turned from the stars. The mask hid his fury, but inside, the ghost howled. Forget him. The words struck like a blade. Because no matter how deep he buried Anakin, the past clawed at him still. He could feel it in the pull of the Force, in the way old bonds refuse to rot. Obi-Wan's voice haunted the edges of his mind like a wound that would never close. The galaxy learned to fear the name Darth Vader, but fear was not silence. Whispers traveled faster than fleets, of Jedi relics hidden on remote moons, of secret enclaves guarded by faith and desperation. Each rumor was a thread, and Vader pulled at them until they snapped in his fist. The Order would not rise again. On Malachor, he walked through the bones of 1,000-year-old war, past statues of Sith Lords frozen in silent screams. The dark side bled from the stones, singing to him in tongues older than memory, and there, for a heartbeat, he felt something sterny, echo, not of Jedi or Sith, but of destiny. The Force did not forget. It whispered still, like a tide against the shore. In the bowels of his fortress, Vader sat in meditation, though peace never came. Around him lay fragments of his past, the shattered crystal of a blue lightsaber, the scorched grip of another. His mechanical breath filled the silence. Like a urge, he thought of her Pag, though he had sworn never to speak her name. The memory of her eyes was a blade twisting in his chest, sharper than any wound Mustafar had given him. Sometimes he wondered if she waited beyond the veil. Sometimes he prayed she did not. The hunts continued. Blood marked his path, but so did whispers of something else, a presence in the Force, faint yet bright, rising from the ashes of a dead order. Vader dismissed it as ghosts, but deep down he knew the truth. The galaxy was not done with him. Not yet, and in the darkness of his chamber, the mask breathed. Each rasp was a promise. The past is dead, the future is war, but somewhere in the black tide of his soul, the child still dreamed of stars. Chapter 9. The Emperor's chain. The throne room of the imperial palace was a tomb of obsidian. Shadows clung to the towering columns, and the air smelled faintly of ozone and iron. At the center, the Emperor waited, a viper coiled in black robes, his smile thin and venomous. Vader knelt before him, head bowed, cloak pooling like spilled ink across the polished floor. "Rise, Lord Vader," Sidious hissed. His voice slithered through the silence like smoke. The Jedi dwindle, the galaxy bends. Yet he let the word hang, sharp and heavy as a blade. Vader rose, towering and silent. His breath rasped in the cavernous hall, a sound that did not belong to flesh. Behind the mask, his face was a wasteland, no expression, only a furnace of hate that never cooled. "You sense it," Sidious continued, circling him like a carrion bird. "The flicker in the void, the remnants that scurry like vermin in the cracks of our empire. They will tempt you to weakness." His yellow eyes gleamed with malice. "Do you fear weakness, my apprentice?" "I fear nothing," Vader's voice ground out, mechanical and hollow. The sound of it still startled him. Even now a stranger's voice answering in his place. Sidious chuckled, dry as bone dust. "Ah, a lie. You fear much. Failure, loss, yourself." His smile widened, slicing through the dark like a scar. "That is why you remain mine." The chain tightened, then not a metal leash, but a current of agony that lit Vader's veins on fire. Sidious raised his withered hands, and lightning bloomed, white and searing. It crashed into Vader's body, arcing across black armor, crawling beneath plating to kiss what little flesh remained. He staggered, but did not fall. "You serve me," Sidious crooned as power crackled, not because of strength, but because of fear. Vader's fists clenched, claws of iron biting into his palms. Pain roared through him, ripping open memories like old wounds. Mustafa's flames, Obi-Wan's voice, Podum's final breath. He swallowed them all and stood taller, smoke curling from his armor. "Yes, my master," he rasped. The words tasted of blood and defeat. Sidious lowered his hands, his grin a crescent of cruelty. "Good, now go. Find those who hide from their fate. Burn their hope to ash." He turned his back as if Vader were nothing but a hound unleashed. And perhaps he was Dot. Vader left the throne room in silence, but inside, fury boiled like magma. Chains bound his flesh and soul, but chains could break. Not today, not yet. He walked through endless corridors of steel and shadow until the palace's cold light faded. In the solitude of his chamber, he removed the mask. The hiss of the seal breaking was a sigh of damnation. Scars clawed across his skull, lips twisted and burned. The man in the reflection was a ruin. Sometimes he still heard voices. Podmess, soft as dusk, Obi-Wan's, breaking like glass, and another, older than either, whispering from the Darth Plagueis. The first time it came, he thought it was a dream. "You are not free." The words coiled in his mind like smoke through cracks. "The Sith never are." "Show yourself," Vader snarled to the empty room. His voice, without the mask, was rawless machine, more ghost. "Chains bind more than flesh," the voice murmured, "everywhere and nowhere. Your master holds you on a leash forged of fear. You will never rise while you bow." "Plagueis is dead," Vader spat, though some part of him doubted. The Sith Lord spoke of spirits lingering, secrets etched into the marrow of the Force. Dead, perhaps forgotten, never. The voice bled away like mist, leaving only silence, thick enough to choke on. After that night, the visions multiplied. In meditation, Vader saw flickers an endless void, a throne empty yet waiting, a figure cloaked in shadows beyond Sidious himself. Prophecies half-formed, promises whispered. They tempted him like a star glimpsed beyond a storm. Still, reality bound him. Each mission was another chain, another act of servitude. When Sidious summoned, he obeyed. When Sidious mocked, he endured. Lightning became a ritual, punishment for failures, real or imagined. And yet, in every crackle of agony, hatred bloomed like black fire. One day, the leash would snap. One day, the Emperor would fall screaming into the abyss. And when that day came, Darth Vader swore the galaxy itself would tremble beneath his heel. But for now, he knelt, and in the hollow of his chest, the voice of Plagueis whispered like a serpent, "Break your chains." Chapter 10, The Ghosts of Mortist. Galaxy burned in silence as Vader dreamed. The dreams came rarely, but when they did, they were storms. This time, they carried him beyond space, beyond time, to a place that pulsed with the breath of the Force itself. Mortis, he had been here before. Long ago, when he still bore the name Anakin Skywalker. He remembered the black monolith rising against a sky without stars, the air thick with eternity. Here, reality bent like molten glass. Here, the Force was not a whisper but a scream. The ground beneath his boots shifted like smoke as he walked through a forest of shadows. Shapes moved in the mist faces from a life buried in fire. Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Padma. They stared with hollow eyes, mouths moving in silence. "You cannot kill what you are," a voice said. Vader turned. From the fog stepped a figure, robed in grey, his face carved from stone and sorrow. The Father, the ancient keeper of balance, unchanged by death, because death was nothing here. His gaze pierced the mask, reached the scarred flesh beneath. "You were to bring harmony," the Father said, his tone neither cruel nor kind. "Yet you choose chains." "I choose power," Vader answered. His voice, even here, bore the weight of iron lungs, the hiss of the machine. The Father shook his head, and the mist boiled with his grief. Power without balance is hunger, and hunger devours all. He raised a hand, and the ground split open, spilling light and darkness like blood. From one side rose the daughter radiant, her wings like woven dawn. From the other, the sun towering, his eyes burning like pits of midnight. They circled Vader, twin shadows of what he might have been. "Anakin Skywalker," the daughter whispered, her voice soft as falling rain. "He still lives." The sun laughed, a sound like cracking stone. "No, that name is ash. He is ours, now fire and shadow." His clawed hand reached for Vader's mask, dragging it away in a single rip. Beneath it, not scars, but a boy's face stared back tattooed dust on his skin, fear in his eyes. The boy spoke, voice breaking. "Why did you kill me?" Vader staggered, rage flooding him like molten glass. The word fractured, died in his throat. His saber ignited with a scream, crimson light slashing the dream. The boy vanished. So did the son, so did the daughter. Only the Father remained, his voice echoing like a bell in a tomb. "You have seen your end." And then Vader stood on the Death Star, a black giant before a boy in white. Their sabers clashed, sparks like falling stars. The boy's eyes were fierce, yet full of pity. He saw something Vader had buried so deep even he could not reach it. The vision twisted again. The throne of the Emperor loomed above an abyss. Lightning flared, blue as cold fire, and in its glare Vader saw the future carved in stone, his own. Hands lifting the old man high, hurling him into darkness. He felt the heat of redemption and the chill of death in the same breath. The Father's voice faded into the storm. The chosen one does not escape fate. He becomes it. Light swallowed everything. Vader tore free from meditation with a roar, fists cracking the durasteel arms of his throne. Sparks spat from broken circuits as the mask hissed against his burning skin. The fortress walls held their silence, but the Force still trembled, thick with prophecy. He stared at his blackened hands, trembling like dying machines. What he had seen was no lie. The chains could break, but only in fire, only in blood, and somewhere beyond the stars, a presence stirred, faint, bright, familiar. The Force whispered a name he had not heard in years. Skywalker, Chapter 11. The boy from the stars Tatooine was silence baked in heat. Twin suns scoured the desert into bone-white emptiness, and the wind moved like an old ghost across dunes that seemed to stretch into forever. At the edge of this nowhere stood a boy, eyes narrowed against the glare, staring at the horizon as if it might open and swallow him into something greater. Luke Skywalker, 17, restless as the wind. The farm was his prison, the moisture harvest his chain. He hated at every dust-choked dawn, every rusted vaporator, but what he hated most was the quiet. Quiet meant nothing was coming. Quiet meant this was all he would ever be. He kicked at the sand, cursing the broken power converter that had cost him another day. Above, a freighter streaked across the sky, its silver belly catching sunlight like a blade. Luke's chest ached. With yearning, he dreamed of ships more than sleep, of the stars beyond the suns. Out there, the galaxy burned with stories, and he was trapped in dust. Luke. The shout came sharp from behind, cutting through his thoughts like a whip. Uncle Owen stood by the homestead, a silhouette of stubbornness. Quit staring and get inside. Storm's coming. Luke clenched his fists, jaw tight. Always storms. Always something to keep him tethered. He muttered something Owen didn't catch and trudged back, heat shimmering around him like a cage. Dinner was silence broken by clattering forks. Beru's smile was a worn thing, soft but tired. "You're quiet tonight," she said gently. "I'm fine," Luke lied. His voice cracked, betraying the boy beneath the anger. He stopped. If he spoke the truth, Owen would snap it in half, like everything else. "You just what?" Owen's tone was sharp steel. Luke's temper flared. "I'm not meant for this. I'm not a farmer, Uncle Owen. There's more out there, and that's how you get yourself killed." Owen cut in, his words cold as Tatooine night. "Your father wanted that life. Look where it got him." Luke froze. His heart kicked against his ribs. "You never talk about him." "There's nothing to talk about," Owen said flatly. "He's dead, that's all." But that wasn't all. Luke saw it in the way Owen's jaw locked, the way Beru's hands trembled just slightly on her cup. The silence that followed was thicker than sandstorms. Later, Luke slipped outside, the suns sinking like burning coins into the dunes. Shadows stretched long and black across the desert. He stood on the ridge, wind tugging at his tunic, and stared at the sky. Stars bloomed, one by one, like eyes opening in the dark. Someday, he whispered to the empty air. The word tasted like hope and hunger. Someday, he would leave this dust behind. Someday, he would touch the stars, and far above, beyond systems and silence, something stirred in the Force. A thread snapped taut, binding the boy in the sand to the monster in the mask. Vader's meditation fractured like glass. The presence he had felt on Mortis now burned clear a spark in the void, bright and defiant. The mask hissed as Vader rose from his throne, metal boots striking the obsidian floor, his fists clenched. At his sides, Skywalker. The name was a blade, cutting through years of ash and chains. He did not yet know what it meant. He only knew this. The galaxy had given him an enemy, or perhaps something far worse. Chapter 12. Shadows returned to the temple. The Jundland wastes were a graveyard of suns and silence. Luke's speeder cut across the cracked earth, engine whining like a lonely voice. Beside him lay the twisted remains of a Jawa crawler, its hull blackened and smoking, bodies strewn like broken dolls in the sand. Tusken work, Luke thought, but deep down he knew better. There was precision in this ruin. Something colder than raiders had passed through here. He bent to examine a scorched mark in the metal clean, circular, too perfect. His gut tightened. This was a blaster burn, but hotter, almost carved. The wind shifted. A shadow moved. Luke spun, heart slamming against his ribs, then froze. The figure before him was tall, cloaked in desert brown, who'd drawn low. The beard was white now, the eyes carved from years and secrets. "Hello there," Obi-Wan Kenobi said softly. Luke blinked, words tangled in his throat. "You're the old hermit, then Obi-Wan," the man corrected, voice worn but steady. "It has been a long time since I used that name." Before Luke could speak, a sound ripped through the air, an unholy shriek, metal against silence. A sand-colored beast lunged from the ridge, teeth like shattered glass. The Tusken swung its gaffy stick down, but a beam of blue fire sang first. The lightsaber's hum filled the canyon like a heartbeat. The beast fell in two smoking halves. Luke stumbled back, eyes wide, the glow painting his face in holy fire. What is that?" He, STAMMERED.OBI-1, shut down the blade, its light vanishing like a memory. "An elegant weapon," he said, "for a more civilized age." Luke stared at him as if the desert had cracked open to reveal a god. Questions clawed at his throat, but the old man turned away. "Come, it's not safe here." They walked in silence to the hermit's hut, a lonely skeleton of stone crouched against the dunes. Inside, the air smelled of dust and old smoke. Relics lined the shelves, star maps, worn robes, a box scarred by time. Luke couldn't hold it. "You knew my father, didn't you?" Obi-Wan paused. For a heartbeat, something flickered in his eyes, pain, sharp and sudden. "Yes," he said at last, voice low. "I knew him. What was he like?" A silence fell heavy as sand. Obi-Wan set the saber down on the table. His hands lingered on the hilt as if it were an old wound. He was a great pilot, a good friend. He swallowed hard, and he was strong with the Force. Luke frowned. "The Force, a binding energy," Obi-Wan said. "It surrounds us, penetrates us, binds the galaxy together." He reached for the box, opened it. Inside lay a weapon older than Luke's lifetime. "This was your father's lightsaber. He wanted you to have it. When you were old enough." Luke's hands trembled as he took it. The hilt was cold, heavy, with ghosts. When the blade ignited, the room filled with blue fire. Shadows fled to the corners like frightened things. Obi-Wan's voice was soft, almost breaking. before he was betrayed and murdered. Luke's head snapped up. Murdered? By who? Obi-Wan's gaze darkened, a storm behind his eyes. He chose his words like a man walking a blade's edge, a young Jedi consumed by darkness. He was once your father's closest friend. He did not speak the name, not yet. The truth was a blade too heavy to lift. Outside, the suns sank into blood-red dusk. In the distance, stormtroopers combed the desert, their white armor gleaming like bone. The Empire's shadow was already falling over Tatooine, and in the black fortress across the stars, Vader paused mid-stride. The Force rippled through him, sharp as a blade. He turned toward the void, and for the first time in years, he felt it clearly, not a whisper, not an echo. A call. Skywalker, Chapter 13, The Battle of Bloodlines. Cloud City floated in a sea of flame and dusk, its towers glowing like molten glass against the violet storm. Inside its shining halls, shadows gathered. Luke's boots echoed down the corridor, his breath sharp in his chest. Each step was a drumbeat, calling him toward something he could not yet name but felt in his bones. Gravity stronger than any star. He found Vader waiting. The dark figure stood at the end of a bridge, carved in black steel and silence, his crimson blade hissing to life like a serpent. The sound filled the air, drowning Luke's breath, drowning thought itself. "The Force is with you, young Skywalker," Vader said, his voice a tomb of iron. "But you are not a Jedi yet." Luke ignited his saber. Blue fire clashed with red in a burst of sparks, and the galaxy trembled. The duel began. Vader moved like a shadow unchained, his strikes heavy as falling towers. Luke parried, barely, his arms screaming under the weight. He had trained barely, but training was a candle in a hurricane. Each blow drove him back, toward the abyss yawning below. "You have learned much," Vader said, pressing harder, every strike a hammer of inevitability. "You'll find I'm full of surprises." Luke shot back through clenched teeth. He lunged, reckless, desperate. Their blades locked, hissing, inches from Vader's mask. The monster tilted his head, almost curious. "Your skills are not complete." The battle surged through chambers of steel and mist, light flashing like lightning. In a storm, Luke's breath rasped, sweat stinging his eyes. Vader drove him into a Trapan-open platform above endless sky. One sweep of the Sith's blade sent Luke crashing backward. Pain exploded as the lightsaber bit deep into flesh. His hand, his saber gone, it fell into the void, spinning like a dying star. Luke clutched his arm, horror twisting his face. The mask loomed over him, black and infinite. "There is no escape," Vader said. His voice was soft now, almost patient. "Don't make me destroy you." Luke's heart thundered. He saw death in that mask, but something else too. A shadow of something human, buried deep. "You do not yet realize your importance," Vader continued. "You have only begun to discover your power. Join me, and I will complete your training." Luke spat blood. "I'll never join you." The wind howled through the chasm like a chorus of ghosts. Vader's voice cut through it, cold and final. "If you only knew the power of the dark side." He paused, and the next words fell like a blade severing the galaxy in two. "Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father." Luke's breath hitched. Rage burned in his eyes. "He told me enough. He told me you killed him." Silence stretched like a noose. "Then no," Vader said. The word rumbled like a storm breaking over mountains. "I am your father. the world stopped. The truth slammed into Luke like fire through bone. His scream tore free, raw and ragged, echoing through the abyss. Everything shattered. Obi-Wan's words, his dreams, the boy he thought he was. All ash now, swirling in the storm. Vader extended his hand, gloved in black, a promise and a prison. Join me. Together we can rule the galaxy as father and son. Luke stared at that hand, at the darkness yawning behind it. His own hand, what remained of it, throbbed with agony. His mind spun, desperate for escape, for anything but this. And then he let go. The wind seized him, dragging him down into a void of cold and screams. Clouds ripped past, tearing at his clothes, at his sanity. Above, the mask receded into darkness. Watching, waiting, Luke fell like a broken star. Chapter 14. Between the light and the flame, the swamp breathed like a living thing. Mist curled between twisted roots, clinging to Luke's skin, heavy with the stink of rot and life. Dagobah was a graveyard of light, a place where suns dared not pierce, where shadows moved even when nothing walked. His boots sank in mud as he followed the tiny figure ahead. "Stay close," Yoda croaked without looking back. His gnarled staff tapped against the roots, each sound echoing like an old heartbeat. Luke's chest burned. He was exhausted, body aching, lungs raw. Training had broken him 100 times over, yet the little green creature gave no quarter. Yoda spoke in riddles, made him lift stones with thought, balance on one hand until his arms screamed. But worse than the pain was the silence of the swamp, broken only by his own doubts. "I don't think I can do this," Luke muttered after another failed attempt to raise his X-Wing from the mire. The ship's nose jutted like a corpse from black water, defying him. Yoda turned, eyes sharp as knives in the gloom. "That is why you fail." Luke clenched his jaw. Anger flickered in him, small but bright. He shoved it down, but Yoda saw. Yoda always saw. "Always with you, it cannot be done," the old master said. "Hear you nothing that I say?" He jabbed a clawed finger at Luke's chest. "This one. A long time have I watched, never his mind on where he was. What he was doing, adventure, excitement. A Jedi craves not these things." Luke looked away, shame biting deeper than the swamp's chill. But inside, something still burned, a hunger, a need to prove, to fight, to end the nightmare the Empire had made. That night, the dream came. He stood before a cave, its mouth yawning like the throat of some ancient beast. Mist coiled from it, whispering. Yoda's voice was low, almost mournful. "That place is strong with the dark side. A domain of evil it is. In you must go." Luke's hand tightened on his saber. "What's in there?" "Only what you take with you." He stepped inside. Darkness swallowed him whole, thick as water, pressing on his skin, his bones. His breath echoed loud in the silence. Then movement. A shadow gliding from the black, towering, masked Vader. The crimson blade flared, cutting through the dark like a scream. Luke's saber leaped to life in his hands, blue fire against red. They clashed, sparks hissing, until Luke struck and the head rolled across the floor. The mask splitting open like a shell. Inside was not Vader. Inside was Luke, his own face. Stared back, eyes glassy, mouth slack in death. The darkness laughed. Luke bolted from the cave, breath tearing his throat. Outside, Yoda watched, silent as stone. Luke's hands shook as he deactivated his blade, but the fear clung like oil. Control, control, you must learn control. Yoda's voice cut through him, but Luke barely heard. His heart pounded with the echo of that face, his face inside. The mask, days bled into weeks. The training broke him again and again, but something in him hardened, too. He felt the force more now as a whisper, but as a tide beneath his skin. It lifted stones, called him through the swamp, let him dance with gravity on narrow routes. Yet with every victory came the shadow of failure of the cave, of the mask, of the truth Vader had hurled like a blade. When the call came, it shattered everything. Leia's voice, faint, desperate, carried on a current no come could touch. Luke. Help. He froze mid-stance, the swamp melting away, his mind reaching across stars. Pain, fear, Cloud City. Yoda's ears twitched. Seen you have something. Friends in pain. It is the future you see. I have to help them, Luke said, already strapping on his belt, his saber. You must not go, Yoda warned, voice like stone cracking. If you honor what they fight for, stay, train. If you leave now, help them, you could, but you would destroy all for which they have fought and suffered. Luke hesitated at the threshold of the hut, rain dripping from the eaves like tears. Obi-Wan's voice drifted from the shadows, a ghost stitched with regret. You cannot control what will happen. This is a dangerous time for you, and Vader will tempt you to the dark side of the Force. Luke's fists clenched. I can't let them die, even if that leads you to ruin, the ghost asked. The X-Wing roared into the storm. Lightning split the sky as Luke soared away, heart pounding with fear and fire. Behind him, Yoda stood in the rain, small and bent, eyes heavy with centuries of sorrow. There is another, he whispered. Far above, in the void, a mask turned toward the stars. The presence that haunted Vader now burned brighter, closer. His voice rumbled through the silence, cold and certain. He will come to me. Chapter 15. The Emperor's Ritual. The Death Star hung above Endor like a wound in the stars. Its half-built frame glimmered with raw metal, jagged and cruel, a fortress in orbit and a grave waiting to open. Lightning crawled through storm clouds on the forest moon below, thunder rolling like the drums of war. Inside, the throne room was a cathedral of shadows. Vast windows stretched to the void, framing the stars like silent witnesses. At the heart of it, the Emperor sat, a husk of a man draped in black, eyes burning like twin suns devouring themselves. His smile was a blade hidden in silk. Guards lined the walls in crimson stillness as the lift doors hissed open. Luke stepped out, hands bound in steel, flanked by troopers. His stride was steady, but his heart was a storm. The Force thrummed through him, whispering warnings, whispering hope. And then Vader emerged from the gloom. His presence filled the hall like a tide of iron. He said nothing. He didn't need to. The rasp of his breath was enough, the sound of a life caged in darkness, of a man who had killed his own name. Luke's eyes flicked to him, searching, always searching. Somewhere beneath the black mask, a face he longed to see still lived, or so he believed. The guards withdrew. Silence thickened. Welcome, young Skywalker. The Emperor's voice was velvet, stretched over razors. I have been expecting you. He rose from his throne with slow, deliberate grace. You no longer need those. A flick of his fingers, and the binders fell like dead leaves. Luke flexed his wrists, never taking his eyes off the old man. You're wrong, he said quietly. Soon I'll be dead, and you with me. The Emperor laughed, a dry, rattling sound like bone on stone. Oh, I'm afraid the deflector shield will be quite operational when your friends arrive. His words dripped with mockery, savoring the tremor in Luke's heart. Through the vast windows, a battle began to bloom. In fire and steel, rebel ships swarmed like desperate sparks against the dark fortress. Turbolasers spat green flame. Explosions blossomed in silence. Your fleet, the Emperor whispered, is walking into a trap, and so are you. Luke's jaw tightened. The old man was a serpent, coiling words like chains. He turned his gaze to Vader instead, seeking something human in the hollow mask. I feel the conflict in you, Luke said. His voice was calm, but beneath it pulsed a plea. Let go of your hate. Vader stood motionless, yet the force churned around him like a storm in iron chains. His answer was a blade of frost. It is too late for me, son. The word struck Luke like lightning. Son, not enemy, not prisoner. A truth Vader no longer denied. The Emperor's smile widened. Yes, let the hate flow through you. He drifted closer, voice low and venomous. Strike me down with all your hatred, and your journey to the dark side will be complete. Luke's saber lay on the throne's armrest, a whisper of temptation in silver and black. The Emperor's voice wrapped around him like smoke. Take your weapon, use it. I am unarmed. Luke's hand trembled. The hum of the blade seemed to breathe in his bones, though it had not yet ignited. Beyond the windows, fire tore the stars apart. His friends died while he stood in silence. And the serpent whispered, end this, end him. Save them. His fingers brushed the hilt. Vader moved, silent as a shadow, and the air grew cold. The trap had sprung, but the ritual had only begun. Chapter 16. The Fall of Shadows. The throne room pulsed with darkness. Thunder rolled beyond the vast windows as starfire bloomed in the void. Luke's hand hovered over the saber on the throne's arm, fingers brushing cold metal. The Emperor's laughter coiled around him like smoke, soft and venomous. Yes, take it, Sidious whispered. Strike me down. Fulfill your destiny. Luke's breath trembled. His friends were dying beyond the stars. Every heartbeat screamed, do it. End this, end him, save them. His hand closed around the hilter. Crimson blade flashed. Vader moved like a shadow torn from the abyss, his strike a storm of fire. Luke's saber ignited in a scream of blue, meeting red in a burst of sparks. The duel began. They clashed across the black floor, sabers howling like wolves. Vader pressed forward, relentless, each blow a hammer against Luke's bones. Luke gave ground, teeth clenched, his pulse a drumbeat of fury and fear. You cannot hide forever, Vader rumbled, his voice an iron tomb. Luke struck back, faster, harder. The dark side brushed his skin like fire, feeding his rage. His blade whirled in a storm of light, driving Vader back toward the steps of the throne. Your thoughts betray you, Vader hissed. Your feelings for your friends are strong, especially. His head tilted, the mask gleaming like night. For your sister, Luke froze, breath shattered in his throat. Ah, yes, Vader continued, his voice a blade of shadow. If you will not turn to the dark side, perhaps she will. The words tore something loose inside Luke. A scream ripped from his chest as he hurled himself at Vader with a fury that shook the hall. His strikes came like thunder, each one a promise of death. Sparks showered from their blades as he drove Vader back, step after step, until the monster stumbled to his knees. Luke's saber crashed down again and again, hacking through black, armor until, with a final, savage blow, Vader's hand fell away, smoking, sparks spitting from severed wires. He collapsed against the railing, breath hissing ragged through broken circuits. Luke stood over him, chest heaving, his blade raised for the killing stroke. The Emperor's laughter filled the room, high and jagged. Yes, good. Your hate has made you powerful. Now, fulfill your destiny. Strike him down and take your father's place at my side. The blue blade hovered, trembling. Luke's reflection burned in the mask, eyes wide, face twisted by rage. And in that mask, he saw the truth. He was becoming the very thing he swore to destroy. Luke's breath broke. Slowly, he lowered the saber. Never, he said, voice raw but steady. I'll never turn to the dark side. I am a Jedi like my father before me. The Emperor's smile died. His eyes flared with lightning. So be it, Jedi. The storm came without warning. Lightning exploded from Sidious's hands, screaming through the air in jagged veins of blue. It struck Luke full in the chest, hurling him back. His cry tore through the throne room as agony consumed him, flesh searing, bones burning. Father, please, Luke gasped, writhing on the floor. Another blast struck, ripping the breath from his lungs. Help me. The Emperor laughed, drunk on the sound of suffering. Lightning poured from his fingers in endless torrents, scorching the black floor white hot. Luke's body arched, smoke rising from his skin. Vader watched, motionless, silent, bound in chains of flesh and will. Lightning danced across his armor, the smell of scorched metal biting the air. In the scream of his son, he heard another voice, a woman's voice, soft as dusk, breaking like glass. There is still good in him. Padam, the name struck like a star, igniting in the void. For the first time in decades, the mask cracked not in steel, but in soul. The Emperor's laughter filled the dark. Luke's scream rose higher, and then Vader moved. The lightning seared through him as his hands closed on Sidious, lifting the old serpent high. The Emperor shrieked, his power lashing wild, burning through circuits, flesh, bone. But Vader held on. He staggered toward the abyss, armor melting, fire crawling across his frame. With a final, shuddering roar, he hurled Sidious into the pit. The darkness swallowed the Emperor whole. Lightning flared, then died. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of Vader's shattered breath. He collapsed beside Luke, smoke curling from his broken form, and in the hollow of that silence, the galaxy changed forever. Chapter 17. The Death of Anakin Skywalker. The throne room lay in ruin. Smoke curled through shattered beams, sparks falling like dying stars. Beyond the vast window, the battle raged, flashes of fire tearing the blackness, but in this broken hall, there was only silence. Luke knelt beside the ruin that had once been Darth Vader. The armor hissed and smoked, plates scorched black, wires spilling like torn veins. The mask stared blankly at the ceiling, its lenses cracked and dim. Each breath was a ragged gasp, metal lungs failing with every rasp. You saved me, Luke whispered, his voice trembling. His hands fumbled at the black casing, searching for a way to hold on, to keep him here a moment longer. Vader's head turned with effort, the mask tilting toward his son. You ready? The voice was no longer iron. It was cracked, hollow, almost human. Luke's eyes burned. I won't leave you here. I've got to save you. A faint sound, something between a laugh and a sigh, escaped the mask. You can't. Nothing can stop this. A pause, heavy with years. but you can end my pain. Luke hesitated, his hands still clutching the broken armor. Vader's voice came again, softer, pleading. Just for once, let me look at you with my own eyes. The words carved through Luke like a blade. Slowly, he reached for the locks. On the mask, the seals hissed, releasing with a sound like a dying breath. The mask lifted free, and the face beneath was revealed. Not a monster. A man, pale, scarred, ravaged by fire and years of shadow. His eyes soft now, clear and blue as a sky long forgotten met Luke's and held them with a weight beyond words. Now, go, my son, Anakin whispered. His lips curved in the smallest of smiles. Leave me. I can't, Luke said, voice breaking. I won't. Anakin's hand no longer steel, but flesh withered and weak rose with effort, trembling as it brushed Luke's cheek. You were right, he breathed. There was still good in me. His fingers curled, barely holding on. Tell your sister you were right. The last breath came like a sigh from a soul. Set free. The eyes that had burned with fury closed in peace. The hand fell, lifeless, to the broken floor. Luke held him for a long moment, the weight of his father heavier than any world. Then he set the body down gently, as if laying a child to rest. Fire spread across the station, explosions ripped through steel. Luke dragged the armor's ruin through smoke and flame, his legs screaming with every step. The galaxy was collapsing around him, but he did not let go. He reached the hangar. The shuttle waited, engines hot, ramp open like a mouth of salvation. Luke turned one last time. The Death Star burned behind him, a sky of fire. Inside the shuttle, he laid the body down. For a moment, he simply stared at the man who had been Vader, who had been Anakin Skywalker. The father he had found and lost in the same breath. The stars swallowed them both as the station died in a sunburst of fire. Chapter 1-8. The echo that remains Ender burned with celebration. Drums thundered. Fires roared. The night sky bloomed. With sparks as wreckage from the shattered Death Star rained unseen across the void. Laughter echoed through the forest like something long forgotten life. Unchained at last. But Luke walked alone. He carried the weight of silence into the clearing where shadows pooled between the trees. In his arms rested the body of a man who had worn many names: Jedi, warrior, traitor, tyrant, father. A man who had once been the galaxy's brightest flame and its darkest shadow, Anakin Skywalker. Luke laid him down on a bed of branches, the armor stripped away until only the broken frame of flesh remained. He stared for a long moment, eyes reflecting the stillness of death. No mask, no machine, just a man, fragile and pale beneath the starlight. The torch felt heavy in Luke's hands. He lowered his head, breath trembling as he whispered words, no. One else would hear. You saved me. You saved us all. The flames caught with a hiss, crawling over the pyre like golden serpents. Heat shimmered against Luke's skin as the fire rose higher, devouring the night. Sparks spiraled upward, vanishing into the stars, the same stars his father had once dreamed of as a boy beneath twin suns. Luke stood rigid. The fire reflected in his eyes, his jaw tight against the tide of grief. The crackle of burning wood was the only sound. No music, no cheers. Only the hush of a life ending twice once in darkness, now in light. Behind him, voices carried from the forest Han's laugh, Leia's quiet words. Luke did not turn. He felt her approach before he saw her. Leia stopped beside him, her presence soft as dusk. For a long time, Neither spoke. The flames danced, painting their faces in gold and sorrow. "Your father?" she asked at last. Luke nodded. His throat ached, but he managed the truth. He was, and he wasn't. But in the end, he was. Leah's hand touched his, warm and steady. No more words were needed. They stood together until the fire sank into embers, the night folding around them like a shroud above. The stars watched in silence. But deep in the current of the Force, something whispered a question without answer. A shadow that clung like frost. Was balance truly restored, or only reset? In the black between galaxies, the echo of Darth Plagueis lingered, a thought that refused to die, a hunger patient as the void. For darkness is never gone. It waits, it whispers, it watches. The fire died. The forest slept. And far beyond, in the silence where suns are born, the game began again.